Hello, my name is Cadet Aylin Rowe.
I'm Cadet Cooper.
I'm Cadet Cinnamon.
We're in section D2 and our instructor is Major Myers.
So, due to the high demands of West Point, which includes not just the academic pillar but physical and military pillar, lots of cadets use caffeine to cope with the amount of stress and the lack of sleep they get at West Point. You can walk into almost any classroom during the school day and find multiple cadets using caffeine and energy drinks because of this. Due to our observations and examples like these, our research question is, does the amount of caffeine measured in milligrams the cadets consume have a positive correlation with the cadets' respective CQPA?
To conduct our study, we're going to create a Google form and send it out as a survey to 124 students. That's 2 from every major. We're doing this to get an even spread across the CQPAs of all the different majors. We're going to ask the participants a few questions. We're going to ask them their average daily caffeine intake in milligrams along with their CQPA. And our experiment is going to be quasi-experimental because we're going to have a control group, which is going to be all of the students who respond with a 0 milligram of caffeine intake. And so their CQPAs are going to be our control group.
Okay, hi everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about the research project a little bit more in depth. So I'm going to go over the associated variables, the control groups, compounds, the population interest, and the sampling method. So the independent variable in our experiment is the caffeine intake in milligrams, and the dependent variable in this experiment is the CQPA, which we're going to be measured from 0 to 4.33. Okay. Last thing I'll talk about is the population interest and sampling method. The population interest is the core of cadets during the academic year, since we're focusing on students at West Point, and the sampling method we're using is random sampling, since we're picking 2 cadets from each major and using their C numbers. So because these groups are naturally formed, they are more prone to have confounds.
The amount of sleep that cadets get is very inconsistent, ranging from like 4 hours to 8 hours or whatever that may be. So to incorporate this into our research question on the survey that we send out, we will have cadets self-report the average amount of sleep they get on a weeknight. When we receive this data, along with the amount of caffeine they consume and their CQPAs, we will do one graph with students less than 6 hours of sleep, their caffeine versus their CQPA, and then we would do one graph with students who get more than 6 hours of sleep on an average weeknight and plot their caffeine versus their CQPA. That way we can see, by comparing those 2 graphs, what there's a difference in the amount of sleep that a student gets.
Another confound that we can take into account is the varying course loads. So since there are 62 majors, we're going to be picking 124 cadets, 2 from each major, to have a even amount of people to experiment.
To expand on what Aylin just said about students having different course loads at West Point, we are going to ask the registrars to send us a list of all the cadet C numbers divided into their respective majors, and then we're going to at random pick 2 C numbers from each major, and that way we can get an even spread of cadets and their different course loads. Our final compound is a cadet's high school GPA. This is a compound because if a student has a good GPA in high school and then does good at West Point, maybe caffeine is not directly involved in how well a student does in terms of CQPA. To address this, we're going to ask cadets to self-report their high school GPA in the survey, and we will use that as a control variable in our analysis. In addition, we are hoping that there is not a direct correlation between GPA and West Point CQPA, because West Point CQPA involves a physical and military pillar, which high school GPA does not.
An ethical consideration for our study, as with any study, was informed consent. We don't want participants to be filling out our survey unaware of why they're doing it or how their data is going to be used. So with every participant, we're going to explain to them why we're collecting their data, how we're going to be using it, and who's going to have access to it afterward.
What's the survey about? Why should we sign it?
Don't worry about it, just fill it out. No, why? Like, why should we fill it out? I'm not gonna let the Chinese steal my information.
Another ethical consideration for our study was confidentiality. We were aware that participants might be weary to give us their GPAs and caffeine intake with it being linked to their C numbers. Therefore, when we collected their data with their C numbers, we scrubbed the C numbers and replaced it with a randomly generated ID number between 1 and the number of participants to still be able to track which data point is which, but not having it tied to a certain cadet.
These guys' GPA stink.
The final ethical consideration we took into account with our study was voluntary participation. We didn't want people to feel forced to fill out the survey, so we made it clear when cadets received the link for the survey, they aren't required to fill it out. It's completely voluntary.
I just really don't want to do it.
Please, guys, just
I said no.
you guys are going to fill out this survey.
Our hypothesis is that we expect a positive correlation between caffeine consumed and a cadet's CQPA because despite confounding variables, caffeine's ability to help a student stay awake in class and push themselves will benefit their performance at West Point, which is measured in CQPA.